Yeah! Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. I am your host today, Sean Engel. You can find me on X or other social media pages at SeanE247. Now, normally, this is where you'd hear from Rich Miletto if you haven't already, but Rich is not going to be here tonight. He is off at the High Limit Dirt Racing Series because it's around his area, and he's been updating me on my phone right here, texting me. He's even got photos with like Kyle Larson and Corey Day right there. So he's off having a lot of fun right there and experiencing some local dirt racing here. But he held down the fort this last week, but I'm going to be holding down the fort this week in his stead. So good job to Rich last week for holding it together, and missing him right here because you know what? It just isn't the same without you, Rich. So we hope you're out there having fun and enjoying the dirt scene. But as for me today, well, we got ourselves an interesting show planned here. So before I get right on into it, let me be sure to get some of the promotional stuff out of the way here. So as you know, this show is a part of FantasyGuru.com right here. And over at FantasyGuru.com, we cover a lot of different sports to help you win big in DFS and betting, including NFL. The NFL draft guide is officially out now, so you can go over to fantasyguru.com. Be sure to get the draft guide, which contains a lot of amazing content in order to help you get prepped for NFL season and help you become a winner. Not just become a better DFS player, but just a better all-around person for knowing the game of football in and out. There's a lot of expert content over there from the likes of Jeff Mans, Ted Schuster, Armando Marsal, Tyler Beaker, Russell Clay, and the rest of the NFL crew. And even our very own Rich Miletto has made some contributions over towards the NFL draft guide. So be sure to go over there, check it out, get the draft guide today. You'll be all set and ready for football season. But if you aren't into football, well, which I don't know, that's kind of odd, but your prerogative, I guess. But we also have options for MLB. We have our MLB content still over there where you can get the MLB guide, from which features content from Ray Flowers, the Oracle, as well as Patio Joe, Brett Wojo, and the rest of the MLB team over there. Or you can get the MVP package, which I believe is still on discount for $80 for the whole year. Or you can get the MVP, Platinum, VIP, or all-in packages, which have all of the sports right there. So MVP contains everything but the football and the baseball. But if you can get the Platinum or VIP or all-in order to get everything with just one single click. But be sure to go over to support at fantasyguru.com and let them know, hey, hook me up. They'll let you know what the best possible deal is and how you can be able to start winning today and learn like a guru, play like a guru, and win like a guru. So that's the goal right here. But as for today on the RaceGuru Thunder Hour, well, I'm not exactly alone right here. I was able to get myself a guest right here, so I'm not doing the show alone, as contrary to popular belief. But we have our guest today, and our guest is someone that's been on the show before. Let's bring him right back on in. It is Dylan Schmittler at Dylan Sports One. He's back onto the Thunder Hour with us. Welcome back, Dylan. It's great to have you back here.
Thank you, Sean. And by the way, I bet you Kyle Lawson is happily recovering from his Indy Charlotte double. So recovering for Kyle Lawson means he's dirt racing.
Yeah, that's right. I heard he actually went ahead and canceled an appearance at his upcoming Supercars event and instead decided to add more dirt racing onto his schedule in exchange for that. So he's getting back to what makes him comfortable right there, Dylan. But, speaking of comfort, it's good to have a face that's been on here before with you, Dylan. So welcome back. How has life been?
Based on the weather today, I don't think anyone would have raced today. Maybe the Ducks would have raced around Estero, Florida, but not any race cars.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit off air about that beforehand. about how much it was like a flood, and you were comparing it towards like the F1 race from Belgium in 2021, right?
Yeah. Yeah, at least we're not using rain. At least we're not using the rain, the blue wall rain, the wet weather time.
Yeah, truly. Otherwise, it would be one heck of a sight, you could say, right?
Maybe Max Verstappen might have a chance to win if it rained like that day.
Perhaps, but we talk about F1 on occasion here and there, as much as Rich does not like to talk F1 all the time. He's more of a NASCAR guy, as you and the rest of the Fancy Guru audience already know. So, but we are focused on NASCAR, so that's what we usually like to talk about on the show. So let's talk a little bit of NASCAR to start here, Dylan. Just this past weekend, we had Nashville. We had 3 different races over there. So, well, overall, we had Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and Cup Series all make their races. What were your initial reactions towards the whole weekend over at Nashville there, Dylan?
Well, on Friday night, I actually think Friday night might have been the best, maybe the best story of the year. I mean, we know Corey Heim is seemingly either running well or or consistently dominating races. But we had, I think, maybe the one of the best feel good stories of the year with the winner of the truck race on Friday night.
Oh, yeah, with Raja Caruth getting his second career win, right?
Yeah, driving the HendrickCalls.com truck. It's hard for me to say call because I only see it on calls, but
Yeah, HendrickCars.com getting the victory right there with Raja Caruth Inspire Motorsports, getting his second career Truck Series win and beating out Corey Heim in the process. Heim was giving it his best and trying to chase Raja at the end, but just couldn't get there. But both him and Lane Riggs looked very strong throughout the race.
yeah, back and forth. I mean, I think we all know unless something catastrophic happens, Corey Heim and Lane Riggs are going to be 2 of the championship four in Phoenix, and it's just going to be who else.
I could imagine that Chandler Smith might be right there with them too, because Chandler's been also very consistent, and he's also the only other driver that's not a regular in another series and not named Corey Heim to get more than 1 win this season. So that right there should say something.
Now, hopefully they all survive Talladega, which is going to be the ultimate question mark.
Oh boy, that is going to be a heck of a time right there. But we're still quite a few months away before we can start thinking about how Talladega is just going to shake up the entire playoff grid right there. But the prospect of it even being in the playoffs that deep is just wild to me.
I mean, if we get a replay of the Cup race, it'll be the most boring playoff race ever.
Yeah, that's true, but hopefully it isn't like that because we're talking about it in reference to the trucks, which they drive quite differently compared to the Cup cars, even in drafting situations.
Yeah, maybe the trucks should bring Junior out of retirement for that race and teach him how to draft.
Well, that's if Junior decides to, but I think Junior has his mind more so set on shorter tracks and the short track scene.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, I'm thinking more Martinsville, Bristol.
Yeah, probably. I'd say so. What did you think about the Xfinity Series race over during the past weekend, Dylan?
Justin Allgaier didn't get the late race caution. It always seems to get him, but in a way, I mean, we know Justin Allgaier is dominating, winning race. I was more impressed almost with Connor Zilisch on a funky racetrack race with Allgaier, who's I think raced in Nashville for like 20 something for like seemingly forever. I was more impressed with Connor Zilisch and how he was able to handle Allgaier. And I mean, and in a way, even though it was second, I think a great learning experience for Zilisch, knowing what he could do on a unique track, and knowing Zilisch is going to be in more. Well, I'm not going to spill the beans because I know you have news to tell us about Connor, but Connor telling us. And how about all 5 of Junior's calls in the top 10?
Yeah, JRM just continues in order to show that they're the team to beat this season. Getting all their cars inside the top 10 is quite impressive right there. Especially occupying a 1-2 finish there with Allgaier and Zilisch. But even then, you had Ross Chastain in 5th, and then Sammy Smith just stuck into the top 10 right there. So, and Carson Kvapil with a 9th place run. Overall, 2 of the cars there, Allgaier and Zilisch, were able to lead during the race there. But yeah, very impressive indeed. What wasn't as impressive, though, was you got to think about the other drivers that led, like, say, William Sawalich, who led 37 laps before he dealt with engine issues right there late in the race. So, yeah, disappointing for him.
I don't know what it is, but like every time I see Sawalich or Gray run well, I'm like, what's going to happen? I'm like, are they going to have a puncture, blow an engine, speed on pit road? I'm like, are those 2 guys like the unlucky drivers at JGO this year?
I'd argue Sawalich more than Gray, because Gray's at least had some decent results this season and finished out a few races. But Sawalich, man, it's like he's just got a black cloud of bad luck following him every single week, and he's just not been able to get it done.
Maybe Sawalich will be happy that the next race is in Mexico. Maybe he'll turn around with some. I don't even know if with the Mexican hat. Maybe do a little. Have a little salsa in Mexico City.
Well, who knows? But if any part of the whole season is any indication, he wouldn't be excited about anything until he can finish a race.
Yeah, and it's not like Sawalich can even. It's not like Sawalich can even have a margarita. He's 18.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, if anything, he's going to school on Xfinity, but he's going to the school of hard knocks, you can say.
Yeah. And I think Justin Allgaier has been an Xfinity racer for like 18 years.
He's been at it for a very long time. The only other big notable story to mention from the Xfinity Series race was Daniel Dye being disqualified after the race because of failing rear heights. He was on track for another solid finish until that happened.
What's with all these? What's with at least one Xfinity call failing post-race inspection? I mean, this is borderline what's happening in the IndyCar series.
There's been a lot of different instances of drivers getting disqualified all around NASCAR this season. I don't know if it's just NASCAR's just been buckling down, looking for more things in order to tag drivers with or not, or maybe the teams are just trying to push the envelope a little bit more. But whatever it is, there's been a lot of post-race penalties.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jesse Love at Rockham, which gave Sammy Smith the win. When Joey Logano and who was the other call at Talladega? Was it Priest or Buescher at Talladega?
Yeah, it was Priest at the time. That was an awful week for RFK that week.
Yeah, and then Brad King and Blaney wrecked on pit road. Coming to pit road.
And then just to round out the Reaction Central section of our show, what did you think of the Cup Series race there with Ryan Blaney finally getting it done and sealing the deal and winning at Nashville?
Hey, Ryan Blaney didn't have anything happen in his car. It didn't blow up. It didn't run out of gas. There wasn't a tire. He didn't jump the restart. Blaine just did what he always does. Great on long runs. I don't know what it is for Ryan Blaine's the best long. Ryan Blaine and Kyle Lawson to me on the best long run drivers in NASCAR, and you're not going. And if that 12 car is hooked up from lap 20 onward, you're not beating Ryan Blaine.
Yeah, Blaney just had the car to beat overall in the end. It had that number 12 team just put a lot of speed. They put a lot of speed into their cars at tracks with the intermediate rules package overall this season, but he really put it on display. He ended up leading the most laps right there, and he had to deal with Denny Hamlin for most of the race too. Hamlin was really competitive right there too. He ended up leading 79 laps and then finished in the third position there, Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, and then how about the second straight week? Maybe it's these prime races, but Carson Hoceval, I mean, ran great in the 600, and then legitimately finished P2 in Nashville.
Yeah, Hocevar matching his best career finish of the year right there. He was a huge story, especially after the way that he ended up roughing up Ricky Stenhouse Jr. during the middle of the race, and then Stenhouse ended up being unable to go there. But Hocevar, he really had a lot of speed and took advantage of strategy right there. Held it together in second place, even though Hamlin had a little bit better car, I'd argue, at the end right there, Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, held off two of the best in Hamlin, and yeah. How about the guys behind Carson Hoceval? Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, William Byron. Not exactly bad drivers. Probably two Hall of Fame drivers, and maybe the next great champion incoming.
Yeah, Byron is on a championship trajectory too if he keeps up the way that he's keeping up. But we know Hamlin and Logano are likely future Hall of Famers for sure. But also, let's give a shout out to a few other drivers that ended up having some really good days too. Bubba Wallace finally got his first top 10 finish in quite a few races there and had to work for it there with a sixth place run. And then Eric Jones ended up finishing seventh there. So Legacy Motor Club with that number 43 team had a pretty great run overall there, Dylan.
Yeah, Legacy Motor Club's run very well the last month and a half, 5-6 weeks. I mean, John Hunter's got a couple decent finishes. Now Eric Jones put in the 43 up there. How about a couple good comebacks? Kyle Lawson was junk the first half of the race, lap down. It's almost a lap down at the end of stage one, and I bet you those guys were thinking, Denny, why didn't you lap Kyle? You should have lapped him. And then Tyler Reddick was a lap down for having a tire issue, came back and got a top 10, and then Bell was wrecked midway through early in stage 2 and finished P10. So, on a track that wasn't easy in the past, those guys came back and all got decent finishes.
Yeah, it's quite incredible to see the resilience of some of these teams that have been put on display, but it just goes to show if you can recover from some of those issues, you're going to have a result that's probably favorable, especially when we dealt with some of the circumstances, like some of the accidents that have happened, especially with stage 2 being as chaotic as it was there, Dylan.
Oh my goodness. I mean, the guys couldn't go. I expected stage 3 to be like stage 2, and yet stage 2 the guys couldn't even go 5 laps, and all of a sudden somebody's spinning, somebody's in the wall. It's like, who's next?
Yeah, as mentioned, we had the Stenhouse incident. Gregson ended up being unable to continue. Alex Bowman got into it, and even Corey Heim, who was doing double duty, he ended up misjudging a pass on Brad Kay, and then ended up wrecking out for the day because of that.
Yeah, I thought the Corey Heim move was just a little bit of inexperience in the next gen car, and then he just overstepped his boundaries. But you know what? That's why these guys get their feet wet. Corey Heim's not going to make that mistake in another year or two if he's driving one of these good cars.
And credit to Corey Heim right there. He started all the way back in 33rd, and he ended up driving his way into the top 15 with a car that looked fast enough to finish top 10 and before that happened. So, hat tip to him, of course.
Yep. I mean,
All right. So, again, that should put a nice little bow on Nashville, unless you have anything else you want to say, Dylan. Do you have anything else you want to add?
nope. This Cowboy's ready for round 2.
All right, so we'll get round 2 started, and by round 2, we're going to talk about some the latest NASCAR news that has popped up around this week. Now, we mentioned about the number 88 team. That's Connor Zilich's junior motorsports team in the Xfinity Series, and we mentioned about penalties, but one penalty we didn't mention was the fact that the number 88 team had a lug nut penalty found after the race for 2 missing lug nuts. As a result, crew chief Marty Lindley has been fined $10,000, and he is being suspended for 1 race after that lug nut penalty right there. Now, what's interesting about this, Dylan, is that they're not going to have Marty Lindley serve the suspension for next week's Xfinity race at Mexico City, but instead they're going to have it the race after at Pocono where they're going to serve that penalty. What do you think about this here, Dylan?
I would rather, especially with several road course races ahead, I would rather have my crew chief in Mexico than Pocono, where the Tricky Triangle is its own separate track.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation, though, especially with a rookie driver like Zilisch. You think he's going to be able to adapt better with his crew chief or without his crew chief?
It might having the crew chief for Mexico might be more important because Mexico is probably a track where Zilisch may be favored to run well over Pocono, where Lord knows what's going to happen there.
Truly. So one can only wonder how Zilisch is going to perform, but that's a story that we're going to have to continue to follow over the course of the next few weeks in the Xfinity Series. But speaking of Connor Zilisch, there's another story that we have with him that was announced this week. So he's also going to go cup racing a little bit more. He's going to add 2 more cup races to his schedule at Atlanta later in the month, and then at Watkins Glen on August 10th there. So I'm excited about the Watkins Glen start in particular there, Dylan, just because we have to remember he made his Xfinity Series debut at Watkins Glen, and he won in his debuts, very impressively so. So I'm excited to see how he's going to be able to handle the Cup Series level over at Watkins Glen. But Atlanta also, that's a very interesting choice right there. What do you think of all this, Dylan?
Atlanta's a little interesting, especially with what his last drafting race turned out, where Jesse Love shoved him into the backstretch wall. But Watkins Glen's going to be interesting, especially because Zilisch ran really well at Coda.
Yeah, he did until he unfortunately got involved in a wreck right there that ended his day. So, yeah, hopefully he can have a better result right there. But it's very exciting to see a hot shot young rookie like Zilisch get more opportunities at the cup level with Trackhouse in that number 87 car.
Yeah, do you ultimately see Zilisch driving for Trackhouse in the Cup next year, or do you think maybe 27?
That is a very good question, because really I think a lot of this is going to depend on how the next couple of months really go performance-wise, and Trackhouse has a decision to make between SVG and Suarez and Zilisch. They clearly know that Zilisch is a very talented driver, and he's proving that he's picked up the Xfinity Series very quickly right there, to the point where maybe by the end of the year he might be a championship contender and a threat towards Allgaier and the rest of them. But as far as next year is concerned, I do not know if they're going to do that, because I think part of it is going to ride on if SVG wins at the road courses, and if Suarez decides to feel like he wants to continue racing at Trackhouse for another year, because we know this is a contract year for Daniel as well.
And seemingly a bunch of guys are getting new deals. I mean, William Byron just re-up that Hendrick. I would think Denny Hamlin re-ups with Joe Gibbs Racing. I mean, I haven't heard anything, but I would think Denny Hamlin's not done racing yet. I mean, I'm thinking who else? I'm thinking what other rides could be open? I mean, maybe Austin Cindric with the 2 call with what's happened there with Penske, but
Well, that Roger Penske has already said that he's already going to be with them in 2026, so I don't think he's going to go there.
yeah, I don't think. Yeah, and Zilisch is the Chevy guy. It's funny. Corey Himes, the Toyota guy. Zilisch is the Chevy guy. Who's the young Ford guy?
Ford, when it comes to them developing drivers, they aren't really in the same ballpark as Chevy and Toyota with their development programs. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, Ford hasn't developed a young driver since Carl Edwards back in the day.
They had some potentials. Like I know they were trying to build up Ty Majeski at one point, but that never really worked out. They were building up Ryan Blaney, you could say, too.
Yeah, Blaney.
Blaney. Cindric probably. Yes, maybe Cindric might have been the last driver that they really put like a lot of serious money behind right there. But even then, it was also because of the Penske connection right there, too.
Sure.
Either way, silly season is going to continue to be pretty interesting to watch. So we'll keep an eye on that. But speaking of drivers that were a part of silly season last year, there was Corey LaJoie. He ended up leaving Spire Motorsports in order to basically do a part-time Cup schedule with Rick Ware Racing this season. But now get a load of this. He's returning to the Truck Series and running 9 races with Spire Motorsports, including this week's race at Michigan there, Dylan. How would you think about that, to return to the team that you basically left, but in a different series? You don't see that too often.
That's confusing if you ask me. I mean, but obviously Corey LaJoie wants to race, but it does feel weird that he's racing for the same team that he left at the end of last year, but doing truck races. That'd be like Ty Gibbs leaving Joe Gibbs Racing and running Xfinity races for the team.
Yeah, except even though Ty has actually done that, he's still been racing Cup the entire time. It's just like Corey, we haven't seen him in the Cup car for a little while, and now all of a sudden he's just got all these truck races with Spire. So it's just very interesting to see. But, this is actually not that equipment for Corey, so maybe he might have an opportunity here.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, we saw last. I mean, guys. I mean, heck, the guy who won last week drove. Wait, the Hendrick isn't the Hendrick Hall spot? I mean, truck a Spire truck.
It is, yeah. Raja Caruth.
Yeah, Roger Caruth.
Spire.
So I mean, similar truck, and I mean, we've seen. I mean, yes, Corey Himes' vehicle seems to be better, but you know what? Get a competitive truck, and all of a sudden, get the competitive juices. I mean, we know Corey is great at those sort of. I mean, Michigan may not be Daytona Talladega, but we know Corey can draft.
Yeah, he certainly can be. So he's going to be back at a variety of different racetracks, which is overall 9 of the final 13 Truck Series races. So Michigan, as mentioned, he's going to be at Richmond, and then the very last 7 races of the entire year. So pretty much that whole time during the playoffs, you're going to be seeing him in that 07 truck.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Very, very interesting. Any final thoughts on our news today there, Dylan? Anything you think that maybe we didn't touch upon here?
No, I think we got the news and notes out of the way.
All right. Well, in that case, let's get right into our preview for Michigan this week. So Overall, we are having our first and only trip of the year at Michigan. They're having the intermediate rules package in play there. We got Truck Series racing going on Saturday. We've got the Cup Series race going on Sunday. 2 races. Truck Series has not raced at Michigan since 2020, so this is their first time in a while, and they're going to have an extended practice session in order to get all the drivers accustomed to racing at Michigan. Overall, it's going to be interesting to see because we got ourselves a larger oval in play, 2 miles. So, and for the Cup Series, we got to think about the DFS and the betting strategies for this week's race. How are you planning on attacking the races from the DFS or a betting perspective there, Dylan?
Well, obviously 200 laps. I think looking at guys who've run well at similar tracks. Honestly, when we mentioned Michigan, I'm thinking this feels like a Tyler Reddick track, but I'm like, hasn't every race this year been like a Tyler Reddick track, and yet that team's largely disappointing.
Yeah, even though they did actually finally put a top 10 together this past week in Nashville. So maybe 2311 is finally onto something, considering that was the first race that where both they had 2 cars inside the top 10 since about, well, you could say Homestead. Back when Bubba finished 3rd and then Reddick ended up inside the top 10 anyway.
And yeah, and both those guys had issues doing the Nashville race. I mean, Bubba with the speeding tick, and then Reddick with a tire issue.
Yeah, so maybe 2311's finally coming together. Well, it's possible. It's possible. Yeah.
I mean, until last year, most people would think of Michigan as a Ford track because I think until Reddick won last year, Ford had dominated the track. Like seemingly every Michigan winner was a Ford driver, whether it be Harvick or Chris Buescher, Joey Logano, or somebody driving a blue oval.
Yeah, that is for sure. But getting into the DFS strategy for this race, I think we can already imagine that for DFS lineups that we may want to get ourselves a dominator or 2, because just like a lot of the other oval tracks right there, there's going to be a big advantage for drivers out front in clean air, and that's going to cause them to continue to stay out front and lead laps. Although, considering that it's a bigger oval, though, I do think that we may see a little bit more passing just because there's a lot more room on the track for drivers to make moves. There's multiple racing grooves. And really, I think place differential may come into play a little bit, but I do think that dominators are going to be a factor. Wouldn't you agree there, Dylan?
I'm hoping you're right and we're able to see some passing, but I think clean air is going to matter. I wish we were still racing California because that would actually unscrew my brain.
Yeah, Auto Club Speedway, that was a fun track. It's a shame that they still haven't been able to get it together with what they're trying to do for in the case of that track so far there, Dylan.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all love Auto Club. You could race from the apron to the wall and then some.
Yeah, that was so much fun to see.
I don't know if Michigan's been quite the same since the repay, but hey, maybe Dale Jr. will talk about his wins in 2008 and 2012 there.
Yeah, I remember the 2012 one that snapped the long winless streak that he had right there. That was a fun one.
Yeah, and Junior smoked them that day. I think 2008 was in a long one when Dale Jr. was going on like an extended gasoline adventure.
Yeah, and then he just made it right there.
Yeah.
I always remember the 2012 one because he was driving that pretty cool Dark Knight Rises paint scheme. That was really cool.
Definitely gave Junior another 20 horsepower.
The Dark Knight just rose and took the victory.
Yeah, Steve Littall put that paint scheme on him just so then he'd win.
Indeed, he did. Now, getting into the betting strategy for this week's race, real quick. I think this is a race where you can certainly think of a couple of different winners, but if you do also notice any drivers that look good on longer runs during practice, they may be ones to watch in order to put like a top 10 or even a long shot bet on, I'd say, just because Michigan is a track that also sometimes is known for getting some longer green flag runs. And with those longer green flag runs, longer run cars are going to come into the picture and probably make their way up through the pack. A little bit like what we saw in Nashville, but I think to a greater extent overall.
Yeah, and also how a car's set up. A car's set up to run fast by themselves, or maybe have a little more, maybe a little more downforce for the cars will be better in traffic.
Yeah. That's also true too, but also Michigan is a track that also favors really running wide open as well too, which I know some of the younger drivers in the field really like taking to this track for that particular reason. We saw it during last year's race with Carson Hocevar and Zane Smith, for example, both getting top 10 runs.
Yeah, and Tyler Reddick winning this race, William Byron running second.
Yeah, truly. So before we get any further into our driver picks and getting really in depth into the drivers, I'm going to be reading off our list of part-timers and notables for this week's slate of races. So in the truck series, we have Lawless Allen in the number 1 truck for Tricon Garage, Nathan Bird in the 02 for Young's Motorsports, Morgan Baird in the number 2 for Rome Brothers Racing, Norm Benning in the number 6 for truck for Norm Benning Racing, his own team. Corey LaJoy, as mentioned, is in the 07 for Spire Motorsports, but another driver that's driving for Spire this week is Carson Hocevar in the number 7, so he's pulling double duty this week at his home track in Michigan, something to keep in mind right there for his motivation to do well. Josh Rome in the number 22 machine for Rome Brothers Racing. Ross Chastain is another driver doing double duty in the number 44 for Nice Motorsports. Then there's Luke Fenhouse in the number 66 for Thor Sport Racing. Now, as mentioned, there is no Xfinity Series race this week, so nothing to read there. And also for the Cup Series, nothing to read there too. There's no open teams or part-timers racing this week there, Dylan.
Yeah. So that means we can figure out which Michigan driver is going to finish the best out of everyone.
Truly, 100%. Haven't seen too many races where there's been absolutely no open teams participating this year, so it's crazy to really think.
That's going to be different next week, though.
Oh, yeah. You got that right. That's a good tease for next week. Now, before we get into the driver picks, just one more time. This show is a part of FantasyGuru.com. You can go over there, get the MLB draft guide, which is available right now. Early bird pricing is currently active, so be sure to hop on that in order to get all the NFL content you need in order to win big. MLB is still ongoing. You can still get that over at FantasyGuru.com. You can get the MVP package, which contains all the sports except for football and baseball, if that's your choice, you want to get that. But we also have options including the Platinum, the VIP, or the All-In packages if you want everything from FantasyGuru.com has to offer within one simple purchase. Be sure to contact support at FantasyGuru.com in order to get the best possible deal. Tell them you want to be hooked up, and they'll give you the hookup. Just be nice, be kind, and they'll do just that. And you can go forth, get any of the packages, get the football, the baseball, anything. Whatever you need, FantasyGuru.com is there for you. And you know what? We're going to be there for the people there, Dylan, as it's now time in order to get into our driver picks. So let's talk about our top price picks to watch first right there, Dylan. Who do you got for us this week? Who do you think is some of the top price DFS options in order to watch?
How about Mr. Consistency lately? William Byron. 2 top fives in a row, finished second year last year. It's not a question of if the 24 is going to win another race. The question when will he be wins another race.
Yeah, that's a good call right there. I actually have Willie B on my list as well. I think he's a driver to watch, and the DFS salaries on both sites makes him pretty friendly to use. He's a flat 10K on DraftKings, and then for FanDuel, he's just a flat 12K. So he's not the most expensive driver out of the top priced options this week, but he also has the results to prove it that he runs good no matter what track type it is. Hit us with your other ones there, Dylan.
Number 2, the guy who beat William Byron to win last year's race, Tyler Reddick. I'm gonna keep bringing up Tyler Reddick's name until he wins the race. I'm just gonna keep bringing up Tyler Reddick's name. That driver's way too good. Come on, 2311 Racing, get you know what together.
Yeah, I think if there is a track where Tyler Reddick can get it together, this is not a bad track for Reddick overall. He's on my list too. He's priced under 10K on DraftKings, so he's my sub 10K top priced option of the week in order to go for it. 2311 tends to have a lot of fast cars here. And although Reddick only has one great finish at this track, it was his last appearance where he ended up winning and leading 15 laps. So he's going to be one to watch right there. You have one more driver for us there, Dylan.
Yeah, and this is where we differentiate. You're going with a guy on baby watch, so maybe you better hope the driver in the 11th call either Denny Hamlin significant other either gives birth or doesn't give birth before Sunday. Otherwise, you might be in trouble. But I know Kyle's been a little bit of a mini funk with what happened in Indy, the Coke 600, the awful first couple stages at Nashville. I think Kyle Lawson gets out of his mini slump here. I know he wrecked out of last year's race, but Kyle Lawson doesn't stay cool for long, and I expect the 5 call to come together. Kyle's not going to like William Byron becoming the points leader right now, and he's like, "You're not getting the max point. You're not getting the max points anymore, Byron. I'm gonna put together one of those weekends."
Well, Kyle Larson used to be the top driver at this track at one point. Like, he was the driver to beat, especially during the Chip Ganassi days.
I remember that restart in like 2017 where Kyle went by, I think, Eric Jones on one of those restarts, and I'm like, what was he? I'm like, that's amazing.
Kyle just has the talent and the knack for this track. It's just a matter of if the team is going to give him the car in order to get there. I'm not doubting the talent. Because I almost put Kyle Larson in my slot as well. It was between him and Hamlin for me. I just went with Hamlin because Hamlin overall has been arguably the most consistent driver at Michigan for the past couple of years, you can say, because the last time that Hamlin has finished outside the top 10 at Michigan was 2019. You got to go back quite a few years for that, and he's finished top 10 every single time right there. And outside of last year's race, he's been leading at least once during every single Michigan race dating back to August 2018. Which is very impressive levels of consistency to find a way to the front. So I think Hamlin, especially with the equipment and how he's been running, he's definitely a driver that I've got my eye on this week right there too. But don't discount Kyle Larson either. I do think Larson is a great pick as well.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. It's not a question of if Denny Hamlin wins another race, it's a question when he wins another race. You can't run that consistently. Well, and I mean, Denny's got wins. We know he'll be a championship contender. Would it surprise anyone if Denny Hamlin and Kyle Lawson are running 1-2 this weekend because seemingly both of them run 1-2?
Here's a little spoiler alert for later, but when it comes towards the betting board, they list Larson and Hamlin as 1-2 for the top favorites in order to win this race. So, I mean, we're definitely hitting it on to something here.
we're not exactly going on a limb with our top choices.
Yeah, that's for sure. But we know when it comes to DFS, you might need more than one of these top price drivers in order to round out a lineup. So that's why we've tried to provide multiple options over here at the Race Guru Thunder Hour. All right, so let's get into the next tier down. Let's talk about some mid-tier drivers to watch overall there, Dylan. On my list, I got Carson Hocevar, Bubba Wallace, and Ryan Preece. So Hocevar, as mentioned, he finished top 10 in his only Cup Series start at this track last year, but he also was pretty good at racing at the Truck Series before. And he raced in the Xfinity Series before too, I believe, but this is a home track for him. He's been running well, and Spire's been getting a lot of speed out of that 77 team in particular lately, and he's been finding his way to the front for most of the last couple of races this season. I think Carson is going to be highly motivated in order to do well within this week's race, and he's pulling double duty. You can't not like a driver pulling double duty between trucks and the Cup Series this week, so I do have Carson Hocevar on my list for that reason. Now, as for Bubba Wallace, a lot of the reasons that I said for Tyler Reddick being good before can also apply to Bubba as well. Bubba has also shown a lot of speed at this particular track as well, and he's finally got a good result. So when you start building up momentum with these teams after a good finish, it's just nothing but a good thing, especially when you're going to a track that's more favored, and that's the case for Bubba Wallace this week. And the salary is very friendly for him to roster him on both sites. And then I have Ryan Preece right there because Ryan Preece, he's just a grinder. He just grinds finishes away, and he ends up being able to gain from where he starts so pretty often. And that's been the case for almost his entire Cup history at Michigan. He's only had one finish where he hasn't gained positive place differential at Michigan. And when you look back at how many races he's ran at Michigan, that's a total of 7 races. He has 2 finishes of 11th or better in his Cup Series history, and that includes his last appearance last year at Michigan there, Dylan.
And you could argue this RFK call is probably better than Ryan Stewart-Haas call last year.
Oh, definitely. And he's been showing it this year because during this time last year, Priest wasn't even anywhere close to being a playoff contender, but now he's in the thick of the playoff hunt right there on points.
Yeah, it might be a question of which RFK guy gets in on points.
Well, I'm not sure if Brad's going to do it on points. He might be too far back in order to do that, but you can definitely make a case for Buescher and Priest in order to get in on points for sure. Maybe even both of them.
Yeah, and we've got a lot. Yeah, and Chris Buescher has got a lot of good tracks coming up second half of the year. I'm thinking Michigan. I'm thinking Richmond, Watkins Glen, Daytona. I think Chris Buescher's. I think Chris. You know what? You know what? I'm talking about Chris Buescher. I think Chris Buescher, mid-tier driver to watch here this weekend. Won this race 2 years ago. Yes. I think of Chris Buescher as, a guy who, if the car runs P10, he runs P10. If the car can run P5, Chris Buescher runs P5. If RFK could give him a call, there might be call like they did 2 years ago. I think Chris Buescher, a guy who could upset the apple cart here. We know Fords tend to do well on this. Fords tend to do well on this track. And maybe, Chris Buescher get up front. I remember that battle with Buescher holding off Horner trucks in 2023. We know passing might not be easy. Buescher is one of those grinders who could just frustrate the guy running second, knowing he's got a better call and can't do piddly poop about it.
That's some good analysis right there. And Chris Buescher, he did finish top 10 the last 2 Cup races at Michigan. He has an average finish of 7.7 with the next-gen car, his worst finish being 16th in 2022. So overall, he's one that I think we also have to watch, and I almost put him on my list too. So that right there shows he's a driver that I think we are going to have to keep an eye on overall there, Dylan, and I think you're right about that. Okay, so let's get into our potential sleepers and value plays right here, Dylan. Sleepers and bargains. So I've got 3 drivers right here. I got Ty Gibbs, Zane Smith, and Ty Dillon. Now, Ty Gibbs being priced down where he is on DraftKings in particular, I find to be criminal. I know overall this year, I haven't been on Ty Gibbs very often, whereas like some Rich Mileto has vouched for him a couple times this year. I think this is the week to vouch for Ty Gibbs because this is a good track for Ty Gibbs overall. Regardless of what you can say, there's been a couple of tracks where no matter how poorly or how great Ty Gibbs is running, he just runs consistently well there. And Michigan is just that track for him. He's never finished worse than 11th in 3 starts at Michigan, including 2 top 10s, and he finished 3rd in this race 1 year ago. Well, in 2024 at Michigan. He's led in each of the last 3 Michigan races, so that's all his Cup starts there. So, and he's going to be in good equipment there too. Joe Gibbs Racing equipment is very good at this track. Then I have Zane Smith, as mentioned. He finished 7th in his only Cup start last year. He did run the Truck Series race before at Michigan, and he did win in the Truck Series at Michigan before. So he's a driver that I think we're going to have to watch over there. And for the salary too, definitely like him quite a bit this week, especially since he's been consistently finishing top 20 during most races with the intermediate rules package. And then I have Ty Dillon there. If you need a driver that's under 6K or you need a deep value sleeper in order to get you a decent finish, I like Ty Dillon for that purpose this week because a lot of the finishes that he's had at this track, he's finished with positive place differential. And if you're going to have a value driver that's that far down in salary, I mean, you look for on DraftKings, he's the 2nd cheapest driver overall in the entire field at 5,100. That is just mind-blowing right there, Dylan.
Yeah. I mean, somebody will last seen Dylan 5,100. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's the world we live in now.
Yeah, and even on FanDuel, it isn't that much better too because he's tied for being the 3rd cheapest driver in the entire field.
Yeah, you imagine Ty Dillon runs well, and finishes P8 this weekend. That'd be the value of the year.
Oh yeah, truly. And there's been a few times this year where he's taken that Kaulig Racing number 10 and shown a little bit of speed with that too.
Yeah, I mean Ty finished. I'm thinking 14th at Daytona, 16th here. I think it was 12th. Yeah, 12th. I mean, Ty doesn't have the top 10, but with a guy like that, you just need, if Ty picks up 8 spots in the race, that's all you want.
100%. And you know what? There's even more evidence to using him when you look back towards his last couple of races, even at Michigan itself. 2020, he took a 23rd place car, finished 18th with it. 2022, the first race he's had in the next gen car at this track, started 25th, ended up finishing 14th in a petty GMS car that really wasn't performing that great on most tracks that year. And then 2023 is his last Cup start at Michigan when he drove for Spire. Started in the 34th position. He took that all the way to 20th. And that was when the 77 car wasn't as good as it was now.
Yeah. And I think Ty makes a lot of sense. Maybe are you going with like the Ty and Ty show on your cheap values?
It might be an option that's in play this week, Dylan. Both of them are just priced that low and likable enough for me to maybe do that.
I like Ty Gibbs too. 3rd place finish. Got some experience in next gen call here. And eventually, Ty Gibbs is going to get his you-know-what together. That call is way too good. Maybe it's the problem of, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if Ty Gibbs is a really good driver or if he just won because that 54 car in the Xfinity Series was 0.8 of a second faster than everybody else. But we'll see. We're talking about all these Michigan drivers. How about the guy from Byron, Michigan, Eric Jones, coming off the top 10 in Nashville? And, we mentioned Brad Keselowski being a Michigan, being a Wolverine, Carson Hosfeld. You're forgetting about that Jones boy.
I like that Jones boy a lot too. If I expanded my list into 4 drivers, he was going to be the next guy up for me. So I like where he's priced salary-wise this week overall, especially on DraftKings. He's 6,700 on DraftKings, whereas on FanDuel, he's 6,500. So he's a little bit more expensive than most of the other value drivers. But the performance that's there lately for Jones has been really good. And he's also finished top 20 in each of the last 4 Michigan races and scored positive place differential in all 3 races with the next-gen car. So I like that call a lot there, Dylan.
And then my third guy would be Michael McDowell. I mean, maybe a better – I don't know. I don't know if this – seemingly Michael McDowell can surprise people with polls. Of course, that was more in the 34 call, but 71. I mean, with what some of those, maybe Michael McDowell be the surprise from that team this weekend.
My only thing about McDowell is that he doesn't have the strongest finishing history. And my other thing about McDowell is that most of the year, he's qualified so high that I just can't trust him to stay there because he qualifies top 10 usually most weeks. And
backwards.
Yep, just drops right there. There's been very few races where he's kind of just stayed up there. Okay, but yeah, so you're still on McDowell though.
Yep.
All right, cool. Something to consider right there for sure. Let's get into the core 4s right here. So I'm going to go through my DFS core 4, which I have Denny Hamlin at 10,700 on DraftKings and 13,500 on FanDuel. And then the value driver that I like for both sites this week in the core is Zane Smith at 6,400 and 5,800 on FanDuel. Now, for DraftKings and FanDuel, the remaining 2 slots varies between both of them based on salary. For DraftKings, I have Tyler Reddick and Carson Hocevar because their salaries are in just the right place where I think they're probably the plays that I like the most there. Whereas in FanDuel, I have William Byron and Bubba Wallace. Byron's at 12K on FanDuel, and Bubba Wallace is 7,800 on FanDuel, which is quite a big difference from Carson Hocevar, who's 9,000 on FanDuel. Big price discrepancy right there. Who do you got in your core there, Dylan?
Give me Byron, give me Tyler, give me Zane Smith, and then give me Chris Buescher, and we don't have the same guys. I don't want to have the same guys, then we're going to look like twins.
Hey, it isn't a bad thing for us to overlap, though, Dylan. Me and Rich have done it so many times on this show where we're like, we overlap. And then that's usually never a bad thing because it just means that we really put a stamp of approval on all the drivers that we just list for our cores right there, Dylan.
And it also means great minds think alike.
Exactly. 100% right there.
And I mean, it wasn't Nashville. I think the 600 where you did really well in the GPP, right?
Yeah, I ended up calling Ross Chastain to win as a bet earlier that week on the Thunder Hour when he was about 18-1, and then he climbed down to 22-1 on the day of, and then he ended up winning. So right there, that was a fun day. Very fun day.
I hope you placed a bet on Ross even when he wrecked his car in practice.
Hey, I just placed a bet the very day of when he was 22-1. It all paid out very nicely there, Dylan.
I bet you had a watermelon for dinner that night.
I couldn't get a watermelon in my home that night, but I certainly thought about it. That's for sure.
I'm like, where did Ross Chastain come from? Because he was nowhere with Denny and Byron, and then all of a sudden I see the one call charging like he's chasing after a watermelon.
A runaway watermelon, you mean?
I mean, Ross Chastain was going faster than Tracy Bird do the watermelon crawl.
Oof, man. Let's get into our betting core fours. Speaking of bets right here, these are our top drivers in order to win right here. So I got a Kyle Larson at plus 550, Denny Hamlin at plus 600. Yeah, we teased it earlier. Big shock. William Byron at plus 800, and then Tyler Reddick at plus 800 as well to round out my betting core four winners. Who do you have there, Dylan?
Kyle, Byron, Tyler Reddick, and Blaney.
So a lot of the same drivers there, but you have Blaney on your list, which I don't mind either. He's at plus 700 on DraftKings Sportsbook in order to bet him to win. Let's get into the other bets and picks real quick to round out our show. I basically have a few other bets that I do want to mention right there. I like Bubba Wallace to get a top 10 at plus 110 on DraftKings right there. Ty Gibbs, in order to get a top 10, his odds are at plus 180 right there. I like that quite a bit. And then on DraftKings, there's a few group winner bets that I like this week. I particularly like Group B, where it's between Christopher Bell, William Byron, Chase Elliott, and Ross Chastain to get the best finish. I think William Byron is going to get the best finish at plus 220. And then Group C, which is between Joey Logano, Kyle Busch, Chase Briscoe, and Carson Hocevar. I like Carson Hocevar at plus 300. And you can parlay both of the two group winner bets that I mentioned, and the odds become plus 1180. So very nice odds over there. You got some other bets you wanted to mention yourself there, Dylan?
Yeah. I've got Butcher at 2,500, and Ty Gibbs. I can't believe that Joe Gibbs driver is plus 4,500, but Ty Gibbs is 45-1 this week.
That is a real spicy long shot that could be very fun to hit.
I was just thinking, how many times will Tyler Reddick be asked to show his birth certificate heading to Mexico next week?
That's a pretty interesting question right there, Dylan.
I mean, like Ty Gibbs looks like he's 12.
Yeah, he is one of the youngest drivers in the field, so I would think he'd probably get the question, maybe.
I didn't say driver's license because I said birth certificate. I'm like, I know he's Joe Gibbs' grandson, but still, I mean, Ty Gibbs looks like he hasn't aged since what becoming a teenager.
Yeah, that is for sure. Oh, man. So, any other comments on any of the bets or anything else for today, Dylan?
I mean, I think Michigan's going to be a track position race. Hopefully, it's not a race where guys have to take like 3 extra seconds worth of fuel, and we actually see a race instead of everybody trying to save fuel, which is always fun.
That is very true. I hope for the same thing too. I just want to see some excitement over there in Michigan. See where the Motor City is and by Detroit and everything. And just Michigan's just been a fun track before in the past. I want to see good racing.
And by the way, everybody says Talladega's the fastest track in NASCAR. Michigan's the fastest track in NASCAR right now, bar none. I remember when those guys would go when I think Marcus Ambrose went like 203 miles an hour around Michigan, average.
Yeah, which is crazy to think.
And hopefully for Corey LaJoy, his Michigan experience will go better than what happened when he flipped in last year's Cup race.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point right there. But he's racing the trucks instead of the Cup car this week, so maybe, just maybe, he'll be able to keep it together.
Do you remember when Elliott Sadler flipped at Michigan?
I need to see that clip again. He's flipped a couple of times in his career.
Yeah. Elliott Sadler flip. I mean, we all remember Elliott Sadler's flips at Daytona, his wreck at Pocono. The wreck at Michigan may have been just as crazy. He flipped like 10, 11, 12 times.
That is crazy.
I mean, I'm like, why is Elliott Sadler why did Elliott Sadler for a few years turn into either Elliott Sadler was flipping or Ryan Newman was flipping?
Oh, yeah, both of those two drivers were flipping a lot back in the day. You got that right.
I mean, Ryan Newman flipped at Daytona or Talladega every other year, and then Elliott Sadler was either flipping or hitting a wall somewhere.
Man, hitting the wall, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so just to round out the show here for today, Dylan, tell us where all the good audience at Fantasy Guru and any other RaceGuru Thunder Hour listeners, where they can find you, your content, and everything. Just promote away.
Well, hit me at Dylan S Sports One, Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page, host of the Big D podcast. Sean was a recent guest when we talked about the Indy 500 and Coke 600 a couple of weeks ago, and it depends. I mean, might be golf, it might be football, it might be soccer, it might be baseball, it might be basketball. I talk about all kinds of sports.
Yeah, he's got a whole big, you could say a whole big spunky spectrum of sports that are being covered.
Yeah.
You like that? I slipped that in there.
Yeah.
It's great having you on today, Dylan. Thank you so much for joining me today on the RaceGuru Thunder Hour.
No, thanks for the invite, Sean. I was looking for something to do because this Wednesday had been sleepier than a koala in Australia might.
That is pretty sleepy over there.
Yeah, koalas sleep like 18 to 20 hours a day. I know because I've seen koalas.
For real, man. For real. All right. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching or listening to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. We should be expecting to have Rich Miletto back with us when he's finally returned home from the dirt racing scene, watching the High Limit Series over there. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching and covering. Be sure to hit me up at SeanE247 on many social media platforms, including X. So you can hit me up right there if you want to talk NASCAR, you want to let me know what you think of the show, or just if you want to tell me, hey, I'm awesome, or hey, if you like my picks, or you don't like them, or you don't think that it's very awesome. Whatever you want to say in between, you can find me there. You can find Dylan at Dylan Sports 1. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all next week for the RaceGuru Thunder Hour.